Thank you so much. I'm Ben Shapiro. I'm the CEO of Otomagnetics. The first thing I'd like to do is I'd like to thank AngelMD. So we've interacted with a lot of different investors, and this has been one of the most efficient, successful, thoughtful, and effective processes that we've gone through. So I really hands down to AngelMD. So next slide. Or is there a clicker that I can use? Thank you. All right, so we are a drug delivery company, and the patient need that we're solving is there are targets in the body that are difficult to reach, that are not reached by current care, or that would otherwise require an invasive surgery to reach. And so we have a magnetic system that can use magnetic fields and can non-invasively deliver therapy to targets in the body that are either currently unreachable or would otherwise require surgery to reach. And I'll say right up front, we invented this because of a clinical need. So we got phone calls from clinicians saying we need to be able to reach the cochlea, we need to be able to reach the eye, and this was done as a response to that. It was not the opposite. It's not that we invented something and then went around looking for a bunch of nails that we could hammer. This was in response to a clinical need. So it essentially works like a magnetic syringe. And instead of the needle, we use magnetic forces to deliver the therapy. So I'll just give you a couple examples. Some of them sound pretty unpleasant. Patients that get macular degeneration get monthly needle injections in the eye, and nobody wants that. And kids who have middle ear infections, chronic and recurrent, get a surgery under general anesthesia, and parents and kids don't want that either. And so what we have instead is we have a simple magnetic device, and that device acts on biocompatible nanoparticles, and we can load those particles with drugs, genes, or proteins. And the device injects the particles through the tissue barrier to the target behind them. And so it literally just acts like a magnetic injector and delivers the particles through the tissue to the target behind them. So the device is simple and clever. We can shape the magnetic field in such a way as to get injection over a long distance or a short distance, longer distance for reaching the cochlea, shorter distance for getting into the eye. And the particles have pores inside them, and so we can load them with pretty much anything. So we can fill those pores with small molecule drugs, with large molecule drugs, with proteins. We've done genes. So we have a platform system that can easily and effectively deliver multiple different compounds or therapeutics to multiple different targets, and the whole thing is patented, both the device and the particles. So what I'm going to show you first is I'm going to show you where this is the first indication we're pursuing. We're pursuing treating recurrent and chronic middle ear infections. And so what happens right now for these cases, it's actually insane, right? I mean, these kids have a middle ear infection in the space that is a quarter of my fingernail, and they're getting surgery in under general anesthesia to be able to treat this, right? And so instead, we're going to magnetically deliver. So if I can ask you guys to just run the video, just to show you just how simple this is in a clinical setting. So you put the particles, the formulation in the outer ear, you apply a magnet, it moves the particles through the eardrum to the middle ear. Once the particles are there, they release drug at a rate that we can set, and they release the antibiotic and the anti-inflammatory steroid, and that clears the infection. And so we've shown in preclinical studies that we can do this, that we can deliver a high enough dose, and that we have a therapeutic effect. So these are the markets that we're going after. We're going after middle ear infections first, and I'll show you why in a second. But there we are displacing a surgery, right? So the competition is a surgery that these kids would otherwise get versus a completely non-invasive treatment. And then the other thing we're doing is when patients, especially kids, get chemotherapy, carboplatin and cisplatin chemotherapy, that causes hearing loss in a significant number of patients, and it's cumulative, so they get more hearing loss as it goes along. And so we have a big contract with the NIH. We have a $2.3 million contract to prevent hearing loss by delivering a therapy into the cochlea without having any systemic effect. We have a pharma company that's interested for magnetic delivery into the eye, so for things like macular degeneration, but without needles. So magnetic delivery into the eye without needles, and then there's skin and wounds, diabetic ulcer type applications as well downstream. So the team of people who are doing this, this came out of my lab, I'm the acting CEO, but we have people who have done this before. So we have Tingpa Ui, who's been in the pharma business for many, many years, knows how to partner with pharma companies. We have Abita Batra, who's here, has lots of business experience. We have, I'll point out three people at the bottom. So there are 3 FDA-approved magnetic nanoparticles, and Jerry Lewis has gotten all 3 through the FDA, and so we're working with him. And then there is a company that has done a delivery method to the middle and cochlea, and had an IPO about a year ago. And so Carl Lebel is expert in the clinical trials to get into the cochlea space and the middle ear space, working with him. And then Lex is the former branch chief at the FDA. So we have had formal communications with the FDA. We know what our process will be. We know that the FDA will consider us as a drug because our mode of action to treat the condition is chemical/biological, so we're going to be considered as a drug with a device consult. We already know that from communications with the FDA. That's actually good for us. Drug companies typically have better valuations, but also either way you have to do ADME studies, administration, distribution, metabolism, and excretion. Absorption, distribution, metabolism, and excretion. Either way you have to do those studies, whether you go in as a device or as a drug. So from that point of view, it doesn't make that much difference. What does make a lot of difference is we're going after the middle ear first, and we're doing that for speed, cost, and need reasons. The need reason is we're replacing a surgery, right, with a non-invasive procedure. And the benefit is there are already FDA-approved formulations for the middle ear. They're generics at this point. And so we're reformulating a formulation that the FDA has already approved. And so what that does is it typically reduces the amount of preclinical and clinical testing that you have to do. So you can do 1 animal species, for example, and you can go straight to phase 3 trials from phase 1. So there's cost savings and time savings from that point of view. And it's a nice exit strategy as well, right? Because we can then go ahead and repatent those formulations to the companies that make the formulations for the middle ear, and that's a nice 25 extra years way of doing it. So this is our timeline. We are focusing on the middle ear first for the reasons I said, but we have a second and a third program for the cochlea. That's supported by that $2.3 million NIH contract, and that's to save hearing from patients receiving chemotherapy regimens. And then we have a pharma company interested in us for delivery to the eye, so to deliver their compound without sticking needles in people's eyes. So we've had a lot of talk about, should you be getting your money from angels? Should you be getting your money from VCs, strategic partners? I just want to make a comment. The comment is there is a 4th bucket of money. The 4th bucket of money is research grants, and we have been very, very successful at that. So we've raised $8 million so far in research funds from the Action on Hearing Loss, from NIH, and that supports the additional investor funds that we're seeking. Basically, we're seeking investor funds to get to market faster. That's essentially what we're doing. So we're doing that to support the safety trials that we need and the phase 1 and the phase 3 human trials that we need. And I think I was originally told that it would be a 10-minute presentation, but I guess either it was 15 or I went faster than I thought I did. But what that does is that leaves lots of time for questions, so I'll be happy to answer any. Just to summarize, we have something that we think is really unique. We can deliver therapies, most any therapy, to targets in the body non-invasively. We've picked conditions where that is a clear and unmet clinical need. And we've done very well in the past, in part because of support from AngelMD, and we hope to be able to continue to do well in the future. I'll take questions.
Real quick question. Can Can you explain a little bit about exactly what happens to the magnetic nanoparticles as far as the breakdown and excretion? Are they going through the kidneys, et cetera?
Sure.
Any kind of effects in regard to the infiltrative process?
No, for sure. So the first thing is the magnetic nanoparticles that we use are very similar to previously FDA-approved magnetic nanoparticles that are used to treat anemia. And so they're polymer particles with iron cores. The iron cores make them magnetic. And so the polymer biodegrades. We've picked a polymer that is a Orange Book listed injectable material. And then the iron oxide gets recycled by the body and goes into the red blood cells. It's very similar. We use a dose that is like 1/400th of what you would do if you got an iron supplement over the counter. And so all the components of the formulation are materials that the FDA has previously seen, that are GRAS, that are safe as injectables, and the particles get recycled and biodegraded.
Ben, Fred Duff here from Dallas. Every surgeon in the audience is thinking, so what we do best is we drain pus. It's an old joke. So you're going to have, so you've got animal data, you're not in the clinical trials, but you're going to have some middle ear infections that are going to still need a tympanostomy, I can guarantee you. So that's something, I hope you're having a surgeon work with you, and if there's a way to get to these kids earlier, but you have to drain pus. So your approach is not going to work if it's an advanced infection.
Yeah. So we have definitely thought about that. We're working with Children's National Medical, and we're viewing this as the thing that you would try before the tympanostomy tube. So you could still have the tympanostomy tube as a rescue, but if this works and you don't need the tympanostomy tube, then that's obviously much better. So absolutely agree with you, and we've thought about that, and we have a team that involves the Children's National Medical folks. So absolutely.
Been being a grandfather of 6 kids, and one of them who just underwent the tubes for long standing, I think this is a fantastic technology. My compliments. So this is a device that is going to be available in a platform that you can do in your office, or is this something that's done in a surgical platform in the operating arena, or where? Tell us a little bit about that. And then I have a follow-up question on that regarding, can this technology, obviously, you're crossing a barrier system. The tympanic membrane, is this something too that we could also advance into crossing the blood-brain barrier to where you have your magnetic on your hood? Because that's obviously a delivery system that you have to, there's only certain medications that can get across that at this point in time, and obviously this opens up a whole nother arena.
No, yeah, so that's 2 fantastic questions. Let me do them both in order. The first one is the device, the magnet device that does the delivery is a small, compact device. So this is something you can do in an in-office procedure. The reason MRIs are in MRI shield rooms because the magnet is big, and so when the magnet's big, the magnetic field propagates further out. This is a small and compact device, so after we use it, we have a little bag that we put it in. You close the bag is shielded, you're done. So that's number 1. Number 2, we are not focusing on getting into the brain, but we know we can do it. And so you can do it via the nose through the cribriform plate, which is semi-porous. So we've done it that way. And also, it depends which condition you're going after. So if you're going after glioma patients, then you're going to care less about the non-invasive and making sure that you're covering the tumor. And so in that case, you might going to go through the cerebral spinal fluid and focus the chemo to where you need it. If it's something like, I don't know.
You give an IV infusion.
Yeah.
And then, have the same process to circulate.
Right. So I'd actually prefer that less, because then you'd have more of the particles in the body and less in the head. So we prefer going in through the nose or through cerebral spinal fluid. So that's definitely something we could.
Patents along that pathway?
Yeah, we do.
One last question back here.
Sure.
Here. So you said this.
I'm sorry, I don't see where the person
Right
is.
here.
Oh, perfect, thanks. Well, there's bright lights, I can't see anything.
So you said this is being treated as a drug. So does that mean every new formulation will have to go through the same FDA process? And how challenging is that in terms of choices in therapies?
Yes, so it is being treated as a drug. We are going after a drug combination that is already approved first for that reason. The kind of conversations we've been having with pharma companies is they want us to deliver their compound. And so the way that is usually structured is they would support the clinical trials for their compound, and in return would get a royalty or a license out back. And so that's how that is solved. So the answer to your question is yes, but the solution is to partner with a different pharma company for whichever drug they want, and we have a pharma company interested in us for different things. Okay.
How long does the therapy take, and how many times do children have to go if you're trying to prevent the ear tubes? Is it a one-time deal, and how do you keep children still? Because how long does it take?
So it's a one-time deal. It takes minutes, right? So in the preclinical, we might apply the magnet for 10 minutes. We're trying to get it down to 5. And it's the kind of thing where if you keep the head, still with like gentle, pressure, and even if the head moves slightly and then you put it back, it's a process where the particles are moving so long as the magnet. So if the head goes out of alignment for a couple of seconds and then you gently put it back, that's okay. So it's a relatively short procedure. It's certainly a lot less invasive than putting a tube in. So that's the answer.
And Charlie, as you're walking up, the power of AngelMD, Ben.
Why don't we have Abed to come up here as well?
Yeah.
So
The power of AngelMD is we have a company we've already syndicated that has a glioblastoma drug. So we'll get you connected with them.
Absolutely. Please.
Thanks, Fred. Awesome stuff, guys. Here you go, Charlie.
Fantastic.
And the beat goes on. Talk about patient-centric, did we earlier? Patient as the customer. I mean, this is marvelous. You can't escape me without a paid political announcement this morning, however, and that is for any of those of you in the room and others that you might find on the street to bring in, we're having a breakfast tomorrow morning for those that would like to learn more about the Catalyst Fund, potentially participate in it, in investment, or provide advice, guidance, having given some of the great customer investments that we've been talking about today. But this is just a wonderful gathering and a great class of awards being given out. And these guys are just wonderful, and so proud to be able to give them the opportunity to continue on with our investment.
Well, thank you so much.
Good deal.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.